Okay.
I would like to see if we could exploit a little loophole
Okay.
in what I see in here. I understand the whole thing about recall, and I think it's pretty well spelled out. You violate, you create a felony,
Yep.
you're pretty much out anyway.
Yep.
But in creating a charter, we are basically dissolving the city corporation as a statutory city and creating a new corporation as a charter, home rule charter city.
Okay.
In dissolving that, we are also potentially dissolving all officers of the statutory city, and potentially we could create new officers of a home rule charter city. And there's language in the league handbook in chapter 4. Subsection 5D is in David, under filing copies of the charter, and it says, the officials elected and appointed under the newly adopted charter may take control of the city's records, money, and property at any time specified by the charter. The charter may provide that until an election of officers occurs, the officers under the old charter will continue to function. Does that potentially give us the city of Greenfield, if we wanted to vote on a charter, to eliminate our city council and appoint a new city council?
It's an interesting way. Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it.
You don't have to comment any further.
Yeah, no. Typically, that's not what happens typically, but that's one. Yeah, I know. Hey, precedent setting.
This is
I like
Greenfield.
That. Yeah, no. Your charter does allow you to set up and create the form, type, whatever. And again, for larger cities, you typically have, similar to what Minneapolis, St. Paul, Winona's, Rochester, whatever they may be, where you've got a different interplay between the mayor and council. And many times the mayor is not a voting member; it's a strong mayor type situation where you have a city council. So yeah, you have a lot of ability to do that. I mean, typically, where the usual changeover in charter is the elected officials that are there continue on for a certain period, and then the new election occurs to replace those individuals. But again, you may have a situation where you're creating a charter with 7 or 9 members, 13 members I've dealt with on charters of councils, and so you're not bound by the 5 or 7 members you usually would have. Usually 5. Occasionally you can have more with statutory city. So, and when you say dissolve, really what you're doing is you're taking, and the best way I can describe it is akin to the city's own constitution. That's what a charter is. It's the city's constitution. But keep in mind the statutes, the last section of 410, whatever it is, you retain all rights in this, whatever charter city it is, to what's in 412 and 471, 465, all the other statutory provisions that pertain to cities. You generally have a savings clause you would put in the charter, and even without that, the statute basically says you still have that authority and you still possess that authority if your charter doesn't speak to it and is different than what statutes provide for. So that's where you oftentimes hear people talking about that the charter has a much broader base than a statutory city has, because you not only have what you have in the charter, but you also have all the laws that the legislature has as well adopted.
Is what I'm talking about the savings clause?
No, you're not. I mean, you're really talking about what is the transition between this Plan A, as we are now, to a charter city.
Can you give us the definition of the savings clause?
Really what it means is the charter, that any power that's not reserved within the charter specifically that says, or is not overruled by the legislature, because there are a number of statutes. Open meeting law, doesn't matter what you put in the charter, statute's going to control that. Same with the Municipal Land Planning Act. I've talked with some of the council about that. What it says in Chapter 462 is generally going to override what you would put in the charter. You can't put in some other zoning scheme for the city. That's covered by the legislature. They have covered that whole area. They're doing that. But say, if you don't talk about the open meeting law, legislature has said that's going to apply based on the savings clause that you have in Chapter 410 or in the charter, until you have it whether you put it in or not. All the powers of an EDA, Economic Development Authority, HRA authority, are available to a charter city because, again, in 469, it says all those powers are there, and the legislature has done that. So you really have a savings clause as a way to preserve any attachment to the statutes that the city may or may not need. And it's a way of also saying by adopting the charter, it doesn't mean you can suddenly say we're not going to follow any state law that the legislature has set. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, you only have the authority or the power that the legislature has provided to the city, whether it's through a charter or through a statutory city concept.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued. Is there any time period for this transition to take place, max, minimum?
Not that I can recall from the statute. And again, just thumbing through it quickly, obviously the charter after an election, if it goes to that point and you have an election, becomes effective at a certain point after that. And I thought it was 30 days at that point, but then again, you can set up a transition from that point, and that's my understanding. I've never had to deal with that. But
According to the language here, it says the charter may provide
yeah,
whatever time we want it.
yeah. And again, oftentimes that's a case where if you've just had an election and you have a council member who's got 3 years, 9 months left or whatever when the charter becomes effective, that seat continues on and then is elected just as it was before. Could you create a transition period that's different than that? Yes. I think you would run into some constitutional provisions if somebody had 3 years left and you're suddenly saying that seat's cutting off in 2 years because they were entitled at the time they were elected. It does raise some interesting issues. I know there have been some cases on that. I just have never had to deal directly with it.
But they would be two different forms of government also.
Yeah, there would be. And again, it comes back to where you simply could create something else where, yeah, you've got 5 members now and you've got 13 members for the city of Greenfield, which I haven't found that being a better course of action in any community I've seen where they have that many elected officials. But there are a number out there in the state. 11 and 13. I think 13 is the highest I've seen in the chart.